Waking up in a trance, Chu Ching felt that someone was leaning on him, and it was a lady. Her curvaceous and sexy body was against his chest. Screaming, he jerked his eyes open. He then pushed the lady away, wrapped a robe on himself, and jumped out of bed. "You, what are you doing?" Chu Ching's voice was shaking. Suddenly, a large amount of information poured into his mind. Experiencing such an influx of information, he tried hard to withstand it and make sense of the information. "Oh, you woke up," said the girl nonchalantly. She looked to be about 28 to 30 years old. Her eyes, nose, and mouth were exquisite, and she looked quite sweet. She had a long black hair spread across her shoulders and her milky white collarbone. Exhaling the cigarette smoke, she murmured, "The medicine's effect wore off so quickly. Anyway, just forget it. Doing it when he's awake will be more interesting." With that, she flicked her long hair and stared at Chu Ching with an enamoring look. "Come on, baby. Baby. What's with this situation?" With the last influx of information in his consciousness, Chu Ching came to understand a very important point. He turned pale and murmured, "Am I reborn? And I was kidnapped by a woman. If I hadn't woken up in time, I'm afraid I would have lost my virginity to her." There seemed to be some misunderstandings here. Chu Ching hurriedly grabbed his clothes, put them on, and turned to leave. "Want to go?" The woman's eyebrows frowned, showing an unpleasant expression. "Why don't you go and ask around that one? Have I, Yi Chengsh, let go of my pigeons? Besides, it's your blessing that you get to see me." With that said, she opened the bed sheet and revealed her slim and sexy body. She used her slim jade-like arms and grabbed Chu Ching. Chu Ching didn't have time to appreciate the beauty and blocked her hand subconsciously. Just as he hit the opponent's small hand, suddenly a huge force knocked him. His expression changed greatly. Such strength. Chu Ching hurriedly retreated back by doing a somersault, evading the woman's hand. He then swooped to the door with a swish, and after opening the door, he ran for his life. Interesting, he actually escaped from my pressure. Yi Chengsh did not chase him. She just held the cigarette in her mouth and smiled leisurely. "Let's see where you can run. Chu Ching, you big white rabbit, this old lady will never let you go." After Chu Ching escaped from the hotel room, he appeared on the street. Looking at the bustling traffic, the high-rise buildings erected in great numbers, he suddenly had an urge to cry in joy. "Finally, I've returned home. After 300 years. At that time, he was playing in Qingcheng Mountain and strayed into the cultivation world. From then on, he began his cultivation journey. He worked hard and gained knowledge, practiced sword arts day and night to cultivate the sword's way, and finally achieved the myriad swords return to one realm. At the moment of breakthrough, the Dengshan channel opened wide, and another vortex channel appeared strangely. At that time, Chu Ching without the slightest hesitation penetrated into it. He didn't expect that he would pass through countless voids, break the barriers of time and space, and return to Earth. However, as he mentally sorted out the information, Chu Ching realized something was wrong. "I did return to Earth, but I returned to when I was 17 years old, attending my high school. This world is completely different from my previous world, and it can even be said to be weird." Not far away, a couple was arguing. The man's face looked like he was crying, while the woman looked impatient and waved her hand at the man. "Man, this is really troublesome. It's just a bag, I will buy it for you. My dear, how nice you are." The man broke into tears and took the initiative to take the woman's arm. Seeing this scene, Chu Ching looked surprised. But not only this. On the streets, the patrolling traffic police and even the special police, everyone was a valiant and formidable-looking woman. They didn't look the least bit coquettish but had sharp look in their eyes. Taxi drivers were mainly women, and even porters who unloaded goods in convenience stores were women. At this moment, Chu Ching turned completely pale. With the further digestion of the information in his mind, he gradually realized that he did indeed travel back to Earth. But this world was not the same as his previous world, but a world of feminist supremacy. In ancient times, during the time between spring and autumn, a catastrophe struck the Earth. It changed the woman's physique, making the woman smart and powerful. Later that year, a woman named Kong Mo proposed an ideology that honored the females and placed them superior to men. This changed the transfer of royal power during the succession from prince to princess. The trajectory of development until the modern times was almost similar to the history of his previous life. There were few differences. For example, it was just a pair of mother and daughter who created the Great Tang. Empress Cixi of the Qing dynasty, a closed-door country, was manipulated by her governors, who controlled the divine state's administration. It ultimately led to the invasion of the 8 countries, and the humiliating years began. In the 21st century, Huoxia stepped into the ranks of powerful nations. The impact of modern civilization caused the change in Huoxia's female superiority and male inferiority ideology. But even so, the phenomenon of giving priority to women over men still occurs from time to time in some areas. Fuck, this is too ridiculous. Chu Ching cursed in his heart. It was too much for him to bear, but then his face changed. Whether it is a woman in power or a man, after all, the party that holds the power dominates. Chu Ching, who had cultivated up to transcending tribulation stage, was not worried about his future life. But the key was, in this world, women married men, not the other way around. Women supported their families by working, while men did housework and took care of children. Men who engaged in extramarital affairs were said to be not loyal to their wife, and women were treated as the green-hatted party. Women chased after men, women flirted with men, and women confessed to men. These were considered the most normal occurrences. But was this normal? Chu Ching's face became dark, and he was in a daze for a long time. He could only accept reality. After letting out a sigh, he had no choice but to walk towards his home. Like his previous life, his home was located in a dilapidated residential building, and the address was still on the 5th floor. It seemed that nothing had changed. When he got home and opened the door, he saw a middle-aged man who was busy with cleaning. Seeing the face of the person, who had appeared countless times in his dreams, made Chu Ching nose sour. "Dad!" He threw himself at the person and tightly hugged him. Lin Yuantu was taken aback. He then looked at his son strangely and pushed him away. "Didn't you go to your classmate's house to play? You came back so early." As he spoke, he seemed to smell a woman's fragrance on his son's body, and his expression suddenly changed, and scolded, "Did you go to a female classmate's house? How many times have I told you that going out is dangerous for a delicate and pretty male like you? Yes, I know you are classmates, but which girl is not rebellious? And some young ladies are even worse. Come and see this news for yourself." With that said, Lin Yuantu took a newspaper, pointed to the headlines, and said bitterly, "A 15-year-old young man, who believed in a female student, was filmed in a porn video." Seeing Chu Ching stunned, father said, "That hurts, right? This guy is ruined." The video is still on the internet. This incident has caused the boy to be unable to raise his head in the local area. "I heard that he could only move his whole family to another city." Lin Yuantu then sighed and said, "Your sister has been fooling around all day. She had finally graduated from a third-rate university, but she still can't find a job. She's gonna spend her whole life at home. Your mother and I don't expect anything from her. Now I just hope that you can get into a good university. You are still a little bit young, don't be fooled by bad women in the future." As he heard his father's concerns, Chu Ching blushed with shame, and quickly made excuses. "Father, I know, you don't have to worry about me." "Oh, what about mother?" In his previous life, his father was a businessman who was on the move, but this life was turned upside down. In this life, his mother opened a company and barely got on the right track. "Your mother outside, discussing business with others. Nowadays, our business is not going well, so she is suffering." Lin Yuantu sighed. He wanted to help his wife, but he was helpless. Chu Ching saw the appearance of a full-time husband on his father. Thinking that he might become like this in the future, he smiled bitterly. "It's time to eat. I'll call my elder sister." While thinking about his elder sister who was close to him in the past life, he walked to a closed door. Chu Ching was unable to bear his excitement and subconsciously pushed the door open and walked in. "You are so bad. You know how to arouse my appetite. Quickly untie your pants. Want me to reward you? A rocket, this is no problem." Chu Zaya smiled heartily and stared at the computer screen. She had all her attention on the handsome boy on the screen and didn't even notice Chu Ching coming in. And Chu Ching, with his sharp eyes, found that his elder sister's cheeks seemed a little red, and one of her hands was placed between her legs. On the computer desk, there was a large collection of discarded tissues. Fuck! Chu Ching turned completely dull. That's right, this scene was familiar to every boy. Even before he mistakenly entered the cultivation world, he often discussed about which female anchor's live broadcast was more tasteful with a good brother of his. In his memories, the elder sister in the previous life was gentle and caring, but now, she looked like a tigress staring at the male anchor in the video, and it was that kind of live broadcast that was not suitable for children. Looking at his elder sister's glowing eyes and her increasingly heavy breathing, Chu Ching crept out of the room and closed the door gently. His face was a little hot. To be honest, this situation was something Chu Ching never thought of. Fortunately, his elder sister did not notice him entering the room. After a while, Chu Ching knocked on the door vigorously and shouted, Sister, I've eaten. Chu Ching could hear the faint sounds of panic and table chair collision from inside. Half a minute later, his elder sister Chu Zaya pushed the door open with a slightly red face and a charming smile. Sister, you weren't watching a porn film, were you? Although he didn't expose the good things that the old sister had just done, Chu Ching still deliberately teased her. Che, what's so good about that? Live broadcast is more popular. Hey, there was this handsome little brother, who was very hot and it was just enjoyable to watch him, Chu Zaya said delightedly. Then she glared at Chu Ching and waved her hand. Hey, what is there to say to you, little boy? With that, she stretched her hips and walked to the bathroom. After a while, she changed clothes and walked out. Walking to the living room, she yelled impatiently, I'll eat out with my friends and come back later. You said that you will be home for half a month, but you go out every day and don't return until 2 a.m. Have you ever considered your future? Lin Yuantu came out carrying a pot of fish soup, and when he heard his daughter's words, his brows trembled. Stop it! Chu Zaya raised her eyebrows, coldly snorted and said, a man is really short-sighted. Father, I am going out for socializing, and my friends are encouraging me to do business together. With that, she stretched out her hand and said frivolously, Father, give me 1,000 yuan first. What? Socializing does cost money. You can't just eat with others' money. Lin Yuantu was almost mad hearing Chu Zayao's reply. Letting out a heavy breath, he said while staring at her, you always say this. Only if you were as clever as your brother, then your mother and I wouldn't have had to worry about you. HMPH, what do I learn from him? A boy's life is easy, he just has to marry a rich woman and his life is settled. But for me, I have to struggle with my business. Come to think of it, one of my friends does business. I'll have to ask her to teach me everything. Chu Zaya shook her head and continued, besides, I still have to support you and our mother in the future. My brother? He'll be married to someone. So father, can't you treat me a little better? Looking at the disappointed look of his daughter, Lin Yuantu was heartbroken. But in the end, he still couldn't hold back some nagging and handed out the money from his wallet. Save some money. Women should go out for entertainment, but shouldn't spend unreasonably. You said that your friends are really capable, right? Father, your daughter is not that stupid. Chu Zaya laughed looking at the money, then put on high heels and walked out of the house with a twist. Oh my god. Chu Ching took a deep breath and sighed. Is this the quiet elder sister of my previous life? Hey, Zaya Ching, don't learn bad habits from your sister. Lin Yuantu turned to his son and said earnestly, Father, why did you let her go like this? Chu Ching looked puzzled. What can I do otherwise? Your sister is a girl. Can I still tie her at home as I did to you? A woman should go out and experience the world, but your sister's temper. Forget it, as long as she doesn't cause trouble. Lin Yuantu sighed and went into the kitchen to prepare dinner. But Chu Ching was completely speechless. What a feminist world. As he was musing, his mother, Chu Tianan, came home looking tired. Mom. Although it was different from his memory, seeing the familiar face after 300 years still made Chu Ching excited. Another point to be noted, in this world, all children follow their mother's surname. Ching Ching. Chu Tianan looked at her son, who threw himself into her arms, and turned happy, and said, Look at my good son, my favorite child. Why are you suddenly like this with me? Is your pocket money insufficient? With that, Chu Tianan laughed and took out a few hundred yuan notes and stuffed them into Chu Ching's hands. Chu Ching was shocked again. His mother in the past life used to be a penny pincher. If he wanted to cheat 10 yuan from her hands to go to the black bar to play games, he had to beg her for a long time. Mother, I don't want it. Shaking his head, Chu Ching refused the money. He knew that his family was in poor financial conditions now. Silly boy, just keep it. It is true that our family is going through a difficult time, but I won't let it affect you. Your academic performance is improving, which is the greatest comfort for your father and me. Chu Zayao. She followed up casually. Don't ask, she went out for fooling with her friends again. Lin Yuantu shook his head and sighed. Just fooling around, huh? I didn't raise her that way. After she finished speaking, Chu Tianan threw her briefcase on the sofa, sat down carefree, and squinted at her husband. If I'm right, our son will be rich, our daughter will be poor. That girl, there isn't any major event outside and she went for fooling around. Let's hope she will realize her responsibilities in the future. Yes, you are right, wife, replied Lin Yuantu. Looking at his father eagerly pouring tea for his mother and even bringing food, Chu Ching cursed a lot in his heart. Is this the life of a man in this world? Is the same true for me in the future? I'll never allow it. Chu Ching rolled his eyes and began thinking about his future path. After having dinner, Chu Ching was too lazy to watch his mother lying on the sofa and watching TV while his father started cleaning the house again, so he directly went back to his room. At first glance, he felt that the room was very neat and generous. It was not like a boy's room at all, and looked more like a girl's boudoir. A full-length mirror was even inlaid on the wall. Looking at the mirror, he smiled bitterly seeing his own reflection, a young boy with a handsome and delicate face. He then started thinking about the new information that appeared in his mind. For example, in the last 1,000 years, because women's rights were respected, every household wanted to give birth to a daughter. This resulted in a vast disparity in the proportion of men and women in the world's population. Well, to put it in perspective, there were still a few million bachelorettes in Huaxia. A woman who wanted to get married to a good man must own a house and a car. As for men, as long as they were handsome and pretty, they could get married easily. It seems that I am the perfect marriage partner that countless women yearn for in their dreams. At this moment, Chu Ching finally remembered that he was crowned the school flower of the secondary high school in Jinmen City. Fu*K. Chu Ching still couldn't believe it. But when he opened the desk drawer, he saw a drawer full of love letters addressed to him. The sheer number of love letters, and it was all full of ladies' confessions. I can't believe that these were written from the hearts of the girls, each and every one. Forget it. Let's leave it as it is. With a bitter smile, Chu Ching went to his bed. He sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. After a moment, he showed a surprised expression. Spiritual chi is so rich. In his previous life, Chu Ching attained the Heavenly Sword Gate stage in the cultivation and was about to break through to the Transcendent Saint stage. Although he broke through at last, his cultivation base was scattered in the space-time channel. But now Chu Ching was quite confident that he can regain his cultivation base and open the space-time channel again. Fu*K this feminist world. I have to return as soon as possible. With a grunt, Chu Ching swore that will return to that normal Earth in the fastest time possible. Time passed as he was cultivating. It was already 10:30 in the evening. His thoughts moved and gathered the spirit chi, which was just condensed by the cultivating the Jidao, and injected it into his ears. His hearing sense became sharp, and he could hear a pair of peaceful breathing sounds coming from his parents' room. Listening to the next room, it was very quiet. Sister hasn't come home yet. Chu Ching was surprised for a while, then he woke up from his cultivation state. In this world, the lifestyle of women and men is turned upside down. It is no surprise for women to play until midnight too. While he was thinking about it, suddenly his phone, which was kept on the desk, started ringing. Chu Ching took the phone, and was surprised to see that the call was from his sister. Sister, Xiaoqing. Chu Xiao's anxious voice came from the other end. She seemed panicked. Something went wrong. You listen to me first. Don't tell our parents. Don't call the police. What? Chu Ching was even more surprised. There is a black bag under the bed in my room. You have to bring it to me right now. I am in the Crescent Bar on High Street. Before she could finish, the phone was snatched by a thug. The thug then let out a menacing laugh and said in a cold tone, "Boy, if you care about your sister's safety, just bring me that bag." Room 302. Chu Ching frowned. He intuitively knew that his elder sister was in trouble. This world's women. Shaking his head, Chu Ching's silhouette swept away and quietly floated out of the room's door. A few seconds later, he came out of his elder sister's room carrying a black-colored bag. There was no sound of footsteps. In the dark room, his eyes were as bright as torches. No one can touch my family. With a murmur, Chu Ching glanced at the window, and in the next second, he swooped down through the window which was on the 5th floor. In the darkness, his silhouette turned into a phantom and quickly disappeared into the night. Chu Ching soon arrived at the Crescent Bar. As soon as he walked in, he saw a group of women dancing crazily on the dance floor. Everyone looked extremely excited as they were madly shaking their heads in tune with the explosive DJ music. He looked around and saw many handsome young men dressed in delicate and pretty clothes. They were sitting on the seat until a girl started a conversation with them, then they would happily walk to the dance floor and dance with the girl. "Miss Wang, a few handsome guys have just arrived, that tender," said a woman. She seemed like she was talking to her superiors, fawning on them. Chu Ching then saw a man who was tightly hugged by a fat lady and led further inside the bar. The fat lady was adorned with every famous brand of accessories. Hearing her subordinate's words, she let out a smile. She then showed a fascinated gaze at the man in her arms and entered a room, seemingly holding a little bunny to have fun with. "Hey, handsome guy, are you alone?" At this time, a beautifully dressed woman walked by and saw Chu Ching's appearance. She got excited immediately and threw herself at him. "I'm not here for this." Chu Ching resisted the urge to scold her and shook his head coldly. Yo, little handsome brother is still a young bird. Do you want elder sister to help you? I assure you that you will have an enjoyable time. The woman was not angry with Chu Qing's rejection. Instead, her smile widened even more. She came closer and exhaled near his ears as she said that. He didn't know what to do. But then, a sturdy woman approached Chu Qing. Narrowing her eyes, she asked politely, "Boy, are you Chu Qing?" Seeing him nod, she then turned to stare at the woman who was embracing Chu Qing and said in a scolding tone, "You dare to touch Sister Ju's prey? Get out." After hearing that name, the woman's complexion changed greatly. She let Chu Qing off and shrunk her neck in fear, followed by a deep bow, and she panicked. "Young lady bye, I didn't know that. I'm sorry, please explain to Sister Ju, this was my mistake." The woman fiercely slapped her face herself and quickly retreated. Humph. The woman named Young Lady Bai coldly snorted, then glanced at Chu Qing and took him to room 302. The lights inside the room were a little dazzling, but Chu Qing could see his sister, Chu Xiao, seated on a sofa and held in place by two brawny women. Another 5 people were standing surrounding her. Seeing his sister calmly seated and showing no signs of injury, Chu Qing relaxed a little. He walked straight in and threw his luggage on the table. "I have brought what you asked. Let my sister go." "Yo." A woman sitting in the middle of the sofa lifted her head. She didn't look the least bit pretty and had a face full of pockmarks. "He's a handsome little brother. You look prettier than in photos," said Ju Yun as she stood up and walked towards Chu Qing. She asked him while her eyes shined bright, "Handsome little brother, how old are you?" The more she looked, the more satisfied she was, and the more agitated she became. Excitement surged all over her body, making her unable to bear. She couldn't help but swallow hard. "None of your business," Chu Qing replied coldly. The woman's eyes made him very uncomfortable. Har har. Holding her anger in, Ju Yun let out a laugh. She then turned towards the bag on the table and unzipped it. The bag was filled with stacks of yuan notes. "What?" Chu Xiao, who was on the sofa, directly issued a cry in surprise. Seems that she didn't expect that the bag was actually filled with money. Chu Qing turned to his sister and thought, "Seriously, you didn't know? There is at least 1 million yuan in it. I don't know how you obtained it, but to think that you didn't even know its contents when you had the bag with you all along." He was quite calm since he had seen it when he took the bag from his sister's room. It was not like he was generous with money, but with his sister in such a situation, it was not the time to think about it. The next second, Chu Zaya recovered from her daze. Her face became paler, and she explained in a panic, "Sister Ju, I didn't know that this was your money. My good girlfriend Zaya Lin asked me to keep the bag safe for a while." "I don't." "Just shut up." Ju Yun interrupted Chu Zaya with a shout and stared at her coldly. After a while, she said with a gloomy expression, "I don't expect you to have the courage to steal my money. Lin Xiaoan's that bitch, doing things in my place, and actually daring to steal my money. Now get out before I take my anger on you." "Many thanks, Sister Ju." Chu Xiao, who was frightened by Ju Yun's expression, broke away from the 2 girls holding onto her. She then rushed to Chu Qing and pulled him to leave the room. "Wait," Ju Yun shouted loudly, who said that he could leave. "Sister Ju, do you mean?" Chu Xiao's expression distorted. The next moment she flew to Chu Qing's front and spread her hands as if to protect him. Through gritted teeth, she said, "Don't you lay your hands on my brother. Oh, your brother looks cute. How young is he? I like him. You may leave but your brother stays." Ju Yun sneered and sat on the nearby sofa. As she poured a glass of red wine, she kept staring at Chu Qing, wishing to swallow him whole. Meanwhile, another brawny woman blocked the room's door. The corner of her mouth also showed an excited smile similar to Ju Yun. "While Sister Ju eats meat, we, the little ones, can always drink soup. This little brat has tender skin. He must taste wonderful in bed." The group of women's unscrupulous gaze made Chu Xiao feel fear for a while, but at this moment, Chu Xiao, who was still bracing herself, said gritting her teeth, "Sister Ju, don't involve my brother in this. My brother is still young, you must let him go." "I should let him go." Ju Yun laughed heartily and lit a cigar. "You go out and inquire about me. I'm happy anyway. Your brother's thin arms, tender body, handsome face, everything is to my liking. I can enjoy him to my heart's content." She then looked at Chu Xiao and gave her a choice. "Okay, I can let him go, but you'll have to stay instead. Now don't blame me for being heartless." Before she could finish speaking, Chu Xiao shouted in a resolute voice, "I'll stay." She then turned around and squeezed out a smile at her brother, "Xiao Qing, you go home first. I'll come back later." Chu Qing shook his head. "I'm not blind." He knew something was wrong here and wanted to leave Chu Xiao as soon as possible. Listen to me, you are male. It is not safe here. It was originally the disaster that I ran into. I will solve it myself, Chu Zaya said bitterly. Sister, do you think that your brother doesn't have any morals? Chu Qing replied with a laugh. Sister, we'll discuss this afterward. But don't you call me Zaya Qing. My name is Chu Qing. After he finished, Chu Qing turned his head and looked towards Ju Yun, who was sitting on the sofa. He held back his disgust and said while shaking his head, "Who asterisk KU? You old woman, you dare to threaten me to stay. What?" All around, Ju Yun's group was shocked to hear this sentence. How many years has it been? Sister Ju has never been scolded by anyone, and now a man, who has not even grown his hair down there, dares to scold her. Sure enough, Ju Yun flared on the spot, showing a somber smile and smothering the cigar. She wailed, "Smelly brat, you are dead. This old lady is telling you, I will take you to bed and torture you in every possible way." Boom! Before she could finish, she was slapped in the face. No one could see it clearly. When she came to her senses, she saw Chu Qing standing in front of her with a composed look and his right hand in his pocket. "Little brother." Chu Zaya was stunned and shouted rashly, but then she immediately covered her small mouth. "Sister, look at me." Chu Qing turned to his sister and smiled indifferently. Ju Yun exploded in anger and directly struck with a fist from behind, but Chu Qing evaded her without even looking at her. "Go, grab him for me." Ju Yun roared exasperatedly and pounced on Chu Qing. Interesting. Feeling the power behind that punch, Chu Qing's eyelids jumped slightly. The women of this world really have great strength. But I'm not afraid. Smelly brat, stay down for me. From behind him, Lady Bai yelled. She resembled a female bear, bursting out of great force. The next moment she appeared on the side of Chu Qing and followed a fierce lock to his throat. Trifling brute force. Chu Qing shook his head with a laugh and pointed his fingers into a sword. The next moment a sword-like flash hit the space between her eyebrow. Sister Bai stood still for a moment before screaming like a pig. Chu Qing kicked her violently and sent her flying towards the wall. "Smelly brat, you are bold." Ju Yun's chi exploded. Only half a minute had passed, but one of her own people was sent flying. Ju Yun's eyes emitted terrifying killing intent, and she suddenly took out a black pistol from her waist. "Is that a gun?" Chu Qing paused, revealing a surprised expression. Seeing that he didn't dare to continue, Ju Yun immediately laughed proudly. "Boy, let's see if your hand is faster than my bullet." "Don't." Chu Zaya flew in front of Chu Qing and said with a pale face, "Sister Ju, my younger brother was rash. Please spare him." Honestly, even Chu Zaya was a little surprised because she didn't expect her brother to have such a skill. But even with such skill, can it be compared with the gun? "Smelly bitch. If you speak again, believe it or not, this old lady will sell you to the mountain dwellers. You dare." Chu Qing let out a sharp cry in reply. Everyone felt that the room's temperature seemed to drop to zero. They couldn't help but let out a shiver. "See if I dare," Ju Yun retorted. "If you want to bring about your own destruction, then I will do it for you." Chu Qing mumbled. "Har har, why didn't anyone invite me to such a lively scene?" Just then, the room's door was pushed open and a woman, dressed in red shinsam, walked in. She was followed by two black-clothed women bodyguards, who were exuding a sharp, imposing manner. "Hey, it's you, Chu Qing." The shinsam-wearing woman noticed Chu Qing and suddenly expressed great joy. Chu Qing groaned and stared at the woman in amazement. It was the same woman he met when he had just crossed over into this world. The same woman who wanted to ride him in the hotel room. "How come you are here?" Chu Qing was stunned. "Har har. Of course, I'm here, it's my place after all." Yi Chengsh laughed on without sparing a glance at Ju Yun. "Ju Yun, I'll take care of this kid. I'll demand an explanation later. Now get out." Hearing this, Ju Yun's complexion became ashen. She screamed, "Madam Yi, do you intend to break the rules?" "Break rules?" Yi Chengsh look turned cold, and her voice fell deep. "Take her away. Discard her limbs and throw her on the streets." "No, Madam Yi, no. Old Yi, I was wrong." Ju Yun turned terrified in an instant. As if awakening to something, she made a horrified expression and started begging for mercy. She even knelt directly on the ground and kowtowed. "One hand and one leg," Yi Chengsh said curtly. The two black-clothed women stepped up, and Ju Yun, who was lying on the ground, was dragged out. Soon, the entire crescent bar became quiet. The music had stopped, and suddenly a scream echoed in the night sky. "Chu Qing, this is a gift from me. Do you like it?" Yi Chengsh smiled, revealing her white teeth. "What business do you have with me?" Chu Qing frowned. If this woman hadn't shown up, he would have solved the problem long ago and walked away with his elder sister. "Yeah, you are the first man to dare to talk to me like this." Under the astonished gazes of the two black-clothed women, Yi Chengsh blinked her eyes in relish. She then examined him top to bottom as if she was looking at a rare toy. Unique. Yeah, one of a kind. You are really different from those men. I've decided. You will be my 36th boyfriend. Fu asterisk K. 36th boyfriend. Chu Qing's face turned black. Sorry, I have no interest in you. Chu Qing refused coldly. He finally remembered that this Yi Chengsh, who seemed like a social person, had strength in underground world in Jinmen City. Yi Chengsh has a younger brother named Ji Mao, who is in the same class as Chu Qing. That day, Chu Qing had gone to this classmate's house to play. As a result, he met Yi Chengsh, who took an interest in him. Later, she had offered him a ride home in her car. Chu Qing only remembered drinking a bottle of juice in her car, and when he woke up again, it was the embarrassing scene that happened in the hotel. In an instant, Chu Qing had the urge to scold her. In his past life, it was not unusual for men to give drugs to women, but now, he was drugged by a woman. No matter how thick his face was, he couldn't let the matter go. He utterly hated her. Little brother, let's go. Chu Zaya was a little frightened after she heard what Yi Chengsh said to Chu Qing. She was worried that they would escape from the wolf only to get caught in the tiger's mouth. So she urged Chu Qing to leave the place together. Yi Chengsh smiled, understanding the meaning behind Chu Zaya's words. Wait a minute. Chu Qing stopped his elder sister and said, Sister, please wait for me outside. Chu Zaya blinked and said, biting her silver teeth, Brother, I won't leave you alone. She actually regretted what had happened till now. As an elder sister, she was supposed to have protected her younger brother, but she almost made her younger brother take the complete risk just now. If he had suffered an accident, she would not be able to forgive herself for the rest of her life. Sister, don't worry, I'm okay. You just watched what I'm capable of. I can protect myself. Yi Chengsh heard this and wanted to say, what good is a man's skill? It is useless in front of powerful women. Well, okay. I'll be right outside the door, scream if something happens. The elder sister hesitated and glanced at Yi Chengsh. It seemed like she was comparing their strengths, but she was annoyed to find that if the other party wanted to use strength, she and her younger brother would be completely useless. But, this woman seemed interested in Chu Qing. She suddenly became excited thinking about such a possibility. The woman in front of her seemed to be very powerful. If Chu Qing married her, wouldn't she have an influential backer? If Chu Qing knew of his elder sister's thoughts, he will definitely keep his distance from her. Brother, you are a male, so don't be impolite. A young lady will not treat you badly. You both talk. Chu Zaya then withdrew with a smile, seeing which Chu Qing's scalp tingled for a while. But fortunately, as soon as she left, he did not have any pressure and immediately looked up and stared at Yi Chengsh. To be honest, Yi Chengsh is very beautiful. Chu Qing had seen a lot of beautiful women in the cultivation world, but Yi Chengsh was different from those fair-hearted fairies. She had a wild nature all over her. Any man who saw her will feel the desire to conquer her. But this is a feminist world. Yi Chengsh. Under Yi Chengsh's playful gaze, Chu Qing walked straight to her, rolled his sleeves, and said indifferently, Do you dare to arm wrestle with me? What? Hearing this sentence, Yi Chengsh and her two guards were stunned. You mean, you want to compete with me? Yi Chengsh laughed, revealing a slight sarcasm. Did you forget the fact that you are a man? Besides, can you compare with me? Men were always inferior to women, and even nowadays, it was ridiculous to tell men to make money to support their families. Who said men are inferior to women? Chu Qing's tone suddenly rose. We'll settle this once and for all. If you lose, you aren't allowed to harass me again. Har har har. Yi Chengsh let out a laugh and said, Okay. But I also have a condition. If I win, you shall be my boyfriend. Okay. With a disdainful expression, Chu Qing confidently pushed open the door and went out. Brother, as the saying goes, a good man does not fight with a woman. The young lady has also shown her sincerity, so why don't you follow her? Chu Zaya relaxed and started advising Chu Qing as he came out. Are you still my elder sister? You actually want me to follow that tigress? Chu Qing didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Yi Chengsh came out behind him and waved her hand, and the whole bar quieted down instantly. In just a few minutes, all the guests in the bar came to know that someone was challenging their big sister. In this bar street of Jinmen City, Yi Chengsh was known as the big sister. Oh, can a boy compare his strength with a woman? What a fool. I really like that little brother on the stage. He is delicate and pretty. I can't wait to swallow him up. Men are made of water, women are made of iron. But I am different, little brother, I'm born for you. The laughter and screams of the girls were heard from the audience, and Chu Qing felt his scalp tingle. Women in this world are too bold. With a shrug, Chu Qing no longer paid attention to the voice of the audience. It was because Yi Chengsh had already occupied her seat before him. I will use my left hand to compare with you. Otherwise, it will be seen as me, a powerful woman, bullying a weak man. Yi Chengsh said confidently. You don't need to. Chu Qing refused indifferently and extended his right hand on the table. Does he really believe that women would lose to men in strength? HMPH. Yi Chengsh was a little bit angry, secretly thinking, he really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I must knock him down mercilessly. Letting him know the gap between men and women is just like the gap between heaven and earth. Start. With the referee's signal, the two started to wrestle. That's a lot of strength. Women of this world are really extraordinary. At this moment, Chu Qing's heart moved, and he noticed a huge force being exerted on his arm, which forced him to fall sideways. Humph. Yi Chengsh showed a bland expression. As for her guards, they were watching Chu Qing with disdain. Little brother, admit defeat. Big sister is our block's top ranked when it comes to strength. But Chu Qing remained unmoved and stared at Yi Chengsh in front of him. Her arms are very thin, even with a sense of beauty, but under that slender limb, there is a hidden power of Terra. If the power of an adult man in my previous life can be equated as being able to lift a 100 kilograms object, then at this moment Yi Chengsh is showcasing at least 300 kilograms of power. However, I am not an ordinary man either. With a roar in his heart, Chu Qing's eyes suddenly burst with cold light. A stream of qi rushed from his dantian and quickly poured into his arms. Chu Qing's entire right arm swelled violently, resembling much like a dragon's arm. There was a faint sound of dragon roar. Yi Chengsh suddenly felt an extremely terrifying force pushing her arm. She didn't even have any time to react. Her entire right arm was pressed by Chu Qing's arm fiercely to the lower side, followed by a burst of numbness and pain. I won. Don't forget our bet. Chu Qing stood up indifferently and walked down the ring like a dragon while Yi Chengsh remained seated with an extremely shocked expression. What? Am I seeing things? Big sister actually lost to a little boy. No, it seemed like Big Sister was unable to put up any resistance at all. Can a male really have such power? With this remark, there was suddenly an excited woman's voice popping out. I figured it out. That little brother must be the legendary eunuch. Chu Qing almost stumbled and fell to the ground. He then pulled the stunned Chu Ziao to leave the bar as soon as possible. Little brother, come on, let's celebrate. In the bar, a crazy woman screamed. Yi Cheng's face was pale. She was fiercely staring at the audience. When everyone saw her, they became frightened and shrunk their heads, daring to say nothing more. Sister Yi, I'll go and capture that kid. One of her guards looked at Yi Chengsh and said in a flattering tone, but Yi Chengsh slapped her in the face. Go away, this old lady hasn't lost yet. After reprimanding the guard, Yi Chengsh turned her head and stared at Chu Qing. Her interest in him only became stronger. Chu Qing, I have to say, you've managed to surprise me. Yi Chengsh stood up with a smile, flicking her long hair, and said, but don't forget, a little man like you is destined to snuggle under the wings of us powerful woman. I stand by my words, as long as you say, yes, you can be my new boyfriend, and walk unhindered in Jinmen City. No, Chu Qing couldn't bear Yi Cheng's arrogant attitude, and subconsciously responded coldly, who says men are inferior to women. Har har. Hearing this, Yi Chengsh laughed unscrupulously and shook her head. You are too stupid. Isn't this a fact that has been true since ancient times? What's the use of men like you? The majority of historical heroes are all women. I won't deny that some men are exceptional, but it is us, women, who contribute more to this society. Sword's edge comes out from sharpening, plum blossom fragrance comes from bitter cold. The rise and fall of the world, women are responsible. Look at the sheer number of poems in history that are praising women. Men are only suitable for doing household work and looking after children at home. Yi Chengsh said all this while shaking her head, not knowing what Chu Qing was feeling. And her words were also recognized by the women present in the bar, and even most men showed an expression of consent. Because this is indeed a fact, in the history of this world, women were the dominant force in society, and men were only vassals. Seeing this scene, Chu Qing felt speechless. You said there are many poems praising women? What about that? But I know that the mountains are so powerful, life is a master, and death is a ghost. At this moment, Chu Qing took a step forward. He gazed at Yi Chengsh and said one word at a time, with a high tone. All I know is that men are striving to get better. A golden scale in the sea can turn into a dragon in the event of a storm. The old man talks about being a teenager, pulling the yellow on the left, and Ching on the right. Will be able to pull the bow like a full moon, look northwest and shoot sky wolf. Even, there are men who don't bring woohoo and charge 50 Yuanshan states. Finally, Chu Qing rose the corner of his lips, smiling like evil spirits, and said, rest on a beauty's lap, wake up to work, and get rewarded. That's what men do. As Chu Qing finished speaking, He took his elder sister and directly walked out. The women in the bar stood there with shocked faces. Did that come from a man's mouth? Even with Chu Qing's departure, those women forgot to laugh at him. Even arrogant people like Yi Chengsh couldn't free themselves from Chu Qing's imposing manner. Sister Yi, this. Yi Chengsh's guard doubtfully glanced at Yi Chengsh. Oh, don't you think it's incredible? Yi Chengsh's face was gradually filled with smiles. A wild man. This fits my, Yi Chengsh's, appetite. Chu Qing, don't you dare to escape from me. Yi Chengsh licked her lips and said slowly. At this time, the guard next to her looked down at the phone and said, Sister Yi, we need to rush home. Over there. Go back. Fart. This old lady has just come out to play for 2 days. How could it be possible to go back now? Yi Chengsh raised her eyebrows, and the black-clothed woman next to her no longer spoke much. On the way home, Chu Zaya was pleading to Chu Qing, and her expressions were full of favors. Younger brother, sister wants to say something to you. What's up? Don't tell our parents about what happened, lest they worry. When it came to this, Chu Qing was not angry, but he couldn't stop wondering why his elder sister, who was a good girl previously, suddenly became a bad girl. Impossible, Chu Qing told cold-faced. He didn't want to let his elder sister come into contact with these underground forces in the future. If he was not present today, it was difficult to guarantee that his elder sister could come out of the Crescent Bar intact. After all, he still intends to return to his original world. In the future, he can't guarantee that someone will come to rescue his elder sister. Hey, smelly brat, I am your sister. Are you planning to threaten me with this matter? Chu Zaya saw that the bitter plan didn't work and immediately changed his face, pretending to be fierce. He turned to his sister with a cold face, making Chu Zaya deflated at once. Today, Chu Qing's performances made her a little unaccustomed, as if he had suddenly changed his personality. He was completely unlike the Chu Qing who obeyed her every word. All right, I won't tell them. But Chu Qing stopped halfway. What is it? It's just that you are not allowed to contact those people anymore. You have to find a job, or go to our father's, no, mother's company and help her. This. Chu Zaya was hesitant and seemed to want to play tricks, but when he saw Chu Qing's cold eyes, he suddenly felt tight. Okay, I promise. Hearing Chu Zaya agree to his condition, Chu Qing sighed in relief. Since the atmosphere between them had calmed down, Chu Zaya did not intend to let Chu Qing pass. You have become very strong. Who will marry you in the future? Chu Qing had black lines on his head as Chu Zaya continued. I think Yi Chengsh is pretty good, but isn't she the heiress of the underground forces in Tianjin? So, if you marry her, I will also be under her protection. She is just a few years older than you. That's not a big problem, is it? Chu Qing had the urge to bring Chu Zaya back to the Crescent Bar, but it would be difficult to guarantee their safety if he were to return to the bar with his sister. It was better to avoid unnecessary problems for a while. Along the way, Chu Zaya kept asking questions about Yi Chengsh. It was not until he returned home and hid in his room was he able to escape from her, who finally got it done. Now let's see how to leave this world. Chu Qing breathed out. Although everything in this feminist world subverted his ability to think, the only thing that hasn't changed was the love of his family. Even if his elder sister was unruly, he would protect her safety. He sat on the bed cross-legged. As his breath gradually calmed down, a ray of spirit chi followed his breath into his danshan. Spirit chi of this world was unexpectedly rich. With this much of spirit chi in this atmosphere, maybe this world also has cultivators. Jidao Zigong began to condense spiritual chi spontaneously. His ears moved slightly. Let's first see if everyone has fallen asleep. From his parents' room, he could hear his father and mother breathing evenly. They were still asleep. From his elder sister's room, little brother takes off our trousers. This old lady can't wait. Then there was a burst of rapid breathing. Chu Qing shuddered and almost exited from his cultivation state. Chu Zayao, you just reached home and all you think is about watching the live broadcast. Resisting his anger, he withdrew his perception and entered his danshan using inner vision. This body is very weak. It has not been washed by spirit chi. In order to traverse the space-time channel, I had to dissipate my cultivation. So if I want to open the space-time channel again, then everything must be started from the beginning. Chu Qing smiled bitterly. It seems that he still had to stay in this world for some more time. After cultivating for a few hours, the sky began to shine, and within his body, spirit chi also tended to saturate. This much spirit chi is enough for me to use a few spells. In such a modern city, the chance of encountering danger should be minimal, so being able to use a few spells during an emergency should be sufficient. Chu Qing, it's time to get up and go to school. A knock on the door rang and Lin Yuantu's voice came from the other side, followed by a sound of dishes. Seems like his father had already started to prepare breakfast for him. In my previous life, breakfast was always prepared by my mother. Why is it so strange to think about it now? Okay, I'm up. Chu Qing complied and sat up on the bed. Although he did not sleep all night, spirit chi from cultivation made him feel well rested. After tidying up a bit, Chu Qing opened the door, and father was ready with breakfast, hot milk, and 3 maiji, as before. Chu Qing, you have to study hard. We can't count on your sister. We didn't know what time she came home last night, but you are different. Get into a good university, find a good job, and continue to be a good person in the future. Upon hearing this, Chu Qing started having headaches. In his previous life, his mother would give him a mental brainwash every morning. He didn't expect that his father would do that in this world. Listen to me, come home early tonight after school. Don't go to that female classmate's house. You are a delicate and pretty male child. Okay, father, I'm done. Chu Qing didn't care how hot the milk was. He slammed it in and fled from the house. Hey, this child. Lin Yuantu shook his head and went to prepare breakfast for his wife. Chu Qing was walking on the road. He felt that at some point even he had come to accept this strange world's setting. In fact, once you accept this setting, it would feel pretty cute when you think about it. Cute, my ass. Chu Qing, wait for me. Chu Qing was walking to the school when he suddenly heard someone calling him from behind. Looking back, it turned out to be an old acquaintance. Dong, long time no see. Chu Qing laughed. His mood turned pleasant. It was Lin Dong, one among his close friends. Lin Dong's family was rich and was very good towards Chu Qing. However, the next moment, Chu Qing's complexion changed greatly. Long time no see. We just saw each other yesterday. Hey, you look weird somehow. Lin Dong shrugged his shoulders and extended his hand towards Chu Qing. He. I remembered it wrong. Chu Qing dodged slightly and avoided Lin Dong's hand. Only then did he notice that the boys around the school were walking together hand in hand. Okay, by the way, do you want to go to the cafe together after school? Zhu Jijia asked me to go together. Speaking of Zhu Jijia, Lin Dong's face turned slightly red, just like the expression of a girl in love. Do you think Zhu Jijia will invite me to watch a movie? She seemed to have said it in the class that henceforth I will be under her protection. Hey, Chu Qing's face turned as ugly as eating a bag of shit. No, this is not Lin Dong at all. What's wrong with you? You are really weird today, what is it? Asked Lin Dong. Chu Qing's face became even more twisted. If all the men in this world were to behave like women, he would rather die on the spot. Just kidding, you look so ugly. Lin Dong giggled, and Chu Qing's complexion became increasingly worse and smoke began coming out from above his head. Let's go to school early today. Lin Dong finally stopped his ridicule and pulled Chu Qing into the school gate, and Chu Qing, who was too lazy to continue their conversation, went along with him. Okay, now everything is quiet. Sitting in his seat, Chu Qing finally got rid of Lin Dong's devil's claws. But seeing his classmates behaving differently compared to his previous world, he couldn't handle it anymore and simply lied down on his table. Chu Qing was not sleeping but recollecting cultivation techniques and spells in his mind. He did not have many spells available now, and his spirit physique was not formed yet. It could be said that his body was very fragile, so he thought that it was necessary to master a defensive spell, Sword Array. With his hands was under the table, he began to make signs. Although he changed his body, he was still skilled at performing spells. The first time was a success. In an instant, he waved away spirit chi. At this time, his arm was poked a few times. Student Chu, are you uncomfortable? A girl with freckles was looking at him. Chu Qing quickly recognized her. She was Song Kairan. Song Kairan was the class leader of their class. In his previous life, she had taken care of Chu Qing a lot. Of course, it was just related to schoolwork. Therefore, when he suddenly saw Song Kairan, he couldn't help but feel a little moved. She got placed first in his class and got into a key university, and later became the goddess in the hearts of countless people. Women's University's number 8 was her title. It's okay. I just didn't have breakfast, and so my stomach is a little uncomfortable, said Chu Qing. I have bread, you can eat some if you want. University entrance examinations are close. You should take better care of yourself, said Song Kairan worriedly. Chu Qing smiled bitterly. He didn't expect the class leader to take care of him so much. When he was thinking about how to respond, suddenly came a cold, snorted sound from behind. Yo, the class leader is really diligent, even though she doesn't look like one. As he turned towards the source, he saw a girl with a poor sense of taste. Chu Qing frowned as an unspeakable aversion came into being. You, Song Kye-ran became embarrassed. She just wanted to help her classmates and unexpectedly she was ridiculed. Chu Ching, did you read the love letter that elder sister gave you yesterday? As the woman spoke, she put her hand on Chu Ching's shoulder, sliding further into his shirt. Chu Ching was irritated and his eyes almost burst into flames. An imposing manner broke out from his body as he shouted furiously, "Fuck off." As she was closest to Chu Ching, the woman completely suffered from the imposing manner and anger that burst out of Chu Ching. She was pushed back a few steps and fell to the ground. How dare you push me down? The woman couldn't accept the fact that a boy dared to push her to the ground, so she became angry and immediately started to mock Chu Ching. She then stood up and ran to Chu Ching as if to punch him. At this moment, a boy suddenly appeared in between them and said, "You, back off." The woman's face turned even more ugly like a pig liver, but the person in front of her was someone she really couldn't afford to offend, because his elder sister was none other than Yi Cheng's. The person standing in front of Chu Ching was Yi Cheng's younger brother, Yi Mao. That, Chu Ching, big brother, I have something to tell to you. Can you come out? Yeah. Faced with his former friend, Chu Ching didn't have much resentment, although this person did almost hurt him by being an accomplice when he was almost raped. When both walked out of the classroom, with a flushed face, Yi Mao said, "I'm really sorry about yesterday. I only learned later that you were being targeted by my elder sister. I sent someone to look for you too, but by then you had already escaped." Chu Ching didn't know whether Yi Mao was speaking the truth. Then he suddenly realized that he possessed a spell and could verify whether someone was speaking the truth or not. He immediately activated the spell and realized that Yi Mao was indeed speaking the truth. "It's okay, I don't blame you." Yi Mao was almost moved to crying and started apologizing repeatedly. Chu Ching could only comfort him by patting his shoulder, but the awkward feeling in his heart showed no signs of disappearing. *****. Although I experienced a small episode in the morning, the follow-up was quite smooth. Apart from the few love letters that I occasionally received, everything else was good. Oh, yes, there is Lin Dong who often called me to accompany him to the toilet. The course was almost the same as in his previous life and was nothing for the current Chu Ching. With his spirit physique and the huge enhancement of his brain, and not to mention that the class leader always helping him to solve various problems, he breezed through everything. He was able to complete the basic review of the course and even some advanced ones. Student Chu Ching, yes. I don't know why, but I feel that you are not the same as before, Song Kye-ran said. What? Har har. Chu Ching just laughed twice, but fortunately, the bell rang at that time. So he bade farewell to Song Kye-ran and left the school in a hurry. Chu Ching, are you going to the cafe at night? Lin Dong's voice came from behind. No. Chu Ching waved his hand and walked forward. At this time, a car suddenly stopped next to him. The window rolled down, revealing a familiar face in front of Chu Ching. Seeing the person's face, Chu Ching's expression changed slightly. Get in, Yi Cheng said as she winked at Chu Ching with a smile. Why should I get in the car? Chu Ching smiled like a warm spring breeze, but there were countless questions in his heart. It is this woman again. Why get in the car? Yi Cheng smiled slightly and continued. Couldn't you just do it for your family? You know what I mean. Oh, that's how it is. He still had his smile when he opened the door and sat on the co-pilot seat. That's right, my wild man. Yi Cheng had a satisfied smile on her face, but the next moment her smile turned stiff. The temperature inside the car suddenly turned cold and the skin on the body seemed to be pricked by countless needles. This was the instinctive reaction of her body when facing danger. Are you threatening me? Chu Ching asked with a cold smile. His finger lightly touched the crystal jewelry hung in the car, as if observing it. However, when his finger left, the crystal jewelry broke with a pang sound and became powder. No, not a threat, said Yi Cheng with a stiff smile, and it was more of an unbearable sense of humiliation. Does he want to pressure me now? If not a threat, then what is it? Chu Ching shifted slightly, and the next moment he was above Yi Cheng, closing the window with his other hand. I have to admit that Yi Cheng's body is really quite seductive. Maybe sleeping with her once would not be a bad idea really. Of course, I'll be the one sleeping with her, not the other way around. Yi Cheng swallowed her saliva. In this position, she was completely confident that she would be able to stun Chu Ching with a single blow, but the seemingly uncomfortable sense of needles pricking made her dare not to act blindly without thinking. I mean, I can help your elder sister and your mother. I know that her company is having some minor problems recently. And then, Chu Ching was lying on Yi Cheng's body like a pervert, which made her feel as if her two peaks were about to jump out from her underclothes and she was also having difficulty breathing. "We can start as friends, and I will take care of your parents' business. So, are you pitying me?" Chu Ching chuckled lightly, but still acted like a rogue. Yi Cheng's eyes were irate. Looking at him, she took a deep breath and said, "No, since you don't like underhanded methods, I will pursue you openly." "Is this not enough?" Chu Ching pondered for a while and nodded. He could see that Yi Cheng's own mind was not bad. It was because she grew up in the environment of the underground forces for a long time that she would act poorly sometimes. "Okay, let's start as friends. Oh, by the way, actually I'm okay with doing it with you. But of course, I'll be on top." Chu Ching smiled, and then returned to his seat as he said, "Drive." This guy. Yi Cheng straightened her clothes which got wrinkled as Chu Ching squeezed on her. A strange expression appeared in her eyes as she looked at him. She then snorted coldly as she turned the ignition on and drove away from the school. Chu Ching didn't mind making friends with Yi Cheng. After all, as Sword Immortal, he was famous for making friends when he was in the cultivation world. "Then where are we going now?" he asked. "Restaurant." "Oh, yes, I have something to ask you." Yi Chengsh looked at Chu Ching, her expression turned complicated and she seemed to stop talking. "Why? Is it something you can't say?" asked Chu Ching. "I want to ask. Do you also cultivate ancient martial arts?" Ancient martial arts. Chu Ching was stunned for a moment, only to realize that the ancient martial arts that Yi Cheng spoke of was the cultivation of spiritual qi. Because of this slight confusion, he did not respond for a while. "No." Chu Ching lied and looked ashamed. "Pew, you are lying." Yi Cheng's eyes almost caught fire. If she wasn't driving, she would have started a fight with him the next moment. "If you haven't cultivated, then was that crystal jewelry broken by the wind? Anyway, I just don't have a cultivation technique. What about it?" Chu Ching said with an expressionless face. She continued questioning him, but no matter how she asked, he stood by his words. "Har har har." Yi Cheng started laughing suddenly. "Why are you laughing?" "I'm laughing because you are really different from other boys. The other boys have thin skin like paper, but your skin is thick like a city wall. It can be compared with the famous people in history." "Hi, what can you do with your skin? Can you eat it?" Chu Ching shrugged carelessly. Since he became a friend with Yi Chengsh, he was not concerned about his keeping face anymore. This was something he only did when he treated someone as his friends. Anyway, Yi Chengsh was better than anyone else. Lin Dong or Yi Mao were better suited to be with each other. Well, yes. The people of our ancient martial arts family all pay attention to one's word of morality, so they still care more about their faces. Yi Chengsh said with a smile. She realized that when Chu Ching was with her, she was even more relaxed than when she was with the elders in the family or those playmates. It was a pleasant feeling that she was experiencing after a long time. Whether she was the heir to the ancient martial arts family or was the influential person who played a decisive role in the underground forces, she still was not able to hide her immature feelings after all these years. "Actually, I secretly investigated you, your family situation and so on, but there seems to be no record of connection with any ancient martial arts family. Since I asked you something that you don't want to answer, then I won't press anymore. Maybe that is your personal secret," Yi Chengsh said. Chu Ching had already figured that she would have investigated him. As the heir of the ancient martial arts family, how could she not use her family power to investigate him? Even if Yi Chengsh did not have this thought, the people around her would immediately investigate his background to ensure her safety. Chu Ching wanted to say something more, but the next moment, his complexion changed. All the spirit chi in his danshan was instantly mobilized by him. "Be careful." Yi Cheng's eyes went wide open staring at the truck that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. She turned the steering wheel to the extreme to avoid the truck, but the truck actually followed her direction. Oh! Although Yi Cheng stepped on the brakes, the truck sped up and bumped head-on. Crash screech Yi Cheng's car was directly knocked into the air and flipped around. The truck's damage from the impact was nowhere near the damage suffered by Yi Cheng's car. Cough cough, Chu Ching, are you okay? Yi Cheng coughed a few times. Her car had started to emit smoke. The car's engine seemed to be on fire. As she opened her eyes, her first action was to look for Chu Ching. However, he wasn't on his seat. Only then did she notice the abnormality in front of her. Chu Ching laid in front of her and blocked all the impact that would have hit their car with just his body. "Chu Ching, you." Yi Cheng's eyes widened. Chu Ching in front of her seemed to be a different person. Unlike yesterday's domineering manner in the bar, he was like a powerful killer among the dark forces, revealing thick murderous aura with an indifferent face. Not only that, his whole body was covered with a layer of golden hue. It was thanks to this golden hue that Chu Ching was not seriously injured. Damn. Chu Qing groaned. Yi Chengsh immediately tried to support him. When her hand touched his back, she felt wetness on her palms. She pulled her hand out and saw that her hands were full of bright red blood. Chu Qing, are you injured? She panicked. No matter how badly she was hurt before, she never frowned, but seeing his blood made her heart restless. This was her man. She never expected her man to actually stand in front of her and protect her when she was in danger. Let's go out and talk. Chu Qing made a decisive blow and hit the door directly with a punch. The golden light-infused fist directly blew out the door. Then Chu Qing hugged Yi Chengsh and successfully jumped out of their car. Let me look at your injury. Yi Chengsh hurriedly turned Chu Qing's body over, and she saw that his back was almost full of delicate scratches, and one serious injury inflicted by the iron bar on the window. Your injury is serious. Hurry, let's go to the hospital. What are you talking about? Do you think it's over? Chu Qing pulled her behind him. Meanwhile, 6 burly women jumped out of the truck, armed with machetes and steel pipes. Chu Qing was speechless for a while. He was a little curious as to how such an oblivious woman lived till today. But what he didn't know was that Yi Chengsh was in a mess due to his injury. You mean, someone wants to assassinate me? Yi Chengsh finally woke up from her daze and squinted at the 6 burly women who rushed in front of her. A strong killing intent appeared in her eyes. Since the assassination failed, be ready to meet my counterattack. How could Yi Chengsh, who could control the underground forces in the whole city, be a timid lady? You finally reacted. Chu Qing shook his arm a few times. At this time, the 6 burly women made their move and a silver machete came chopping towards him. Probably because they thought that he was just a simple weak man, they didn't treat him as a threat and only a single woman came to attack him. I'm being underestimated again. There was a fierce color in Chu Qing's eyes, and the golden light flashed on his arm. He wanted to resolve the battle with the fastest speed. Although the iron bar behind him was stuck between his bones, he shouldn't delay in treating it. Otherwise, even with his physique, it'll leave more serious hidden injuries. Clang! The silver machete cut directly on Chu Qing's arm and made a sound similar to metal clanging. The attack was actually blocked by his right arm. A look of shock appeared in the eyes of the burly woman, and before she could react, Chu Qing struck her with unimaginable speed. His left fist, which was covered with golden rays of light, landed squarely on the burly woman's abdomen. Chu Qing had actually used spiritual qi in his punch. If the opponent had not cultivated, then she wouldn't be able to take his punch. The burly woman issued a groan and was forced to take 3 to 4 steps back. The golden imprint struck on her abdomen seemed to explode in her body, directly hurting her internal organs. As she looked up in shock, she saw a golden leg gliding fiercely towards her face. The burly woman was sent flying while her machete fell to the ground. The battle ended just like that. In just 3 rounds, Chu Qing easily shut down a person. He looked towards the Yi Chengsh side, which was surrounded by perils. She was facing the 5 people at the same time. Although she cultivated ancient martial arts, it was a bit overwhelming to fight multiple people at the same time. In just a few seconds, a bloody cut appeared on her abdomen. Looking at her injury, killing intent appeared on Chu Qing's face. He kicked the machete up and caught it by its silver handle. When he got his hands on the machete, it seemed that a peerless aura appeared from him. It was the aura of the sword. As the sword immortal who made his enemies terror-stricken in the cultivation world, when he equipped the sword, he turned into sword immortal Chu Qing. The next moment, a golden hue appeared on the silver machete and he vanished from his place. When he reappeared again, he was already near the burly woman who was sent to the ground by Yi Chengsh's strike. Zing! There was a muffled sound, and the woman suffered a cut to the neck. Of course, Chu Qing used the blunt of the machete, otherwise, her head would have been directly chopped off. Although I don't know if Yi Chengsh can kill people in this place, it is better to give her less trouble. Instantly, the eyes of the other 4 burly women were filled with shock. A kid actually managed to knock out one of them in an instant. And unlike them, within Yi Chengsh's eyes appeared a bit of joy. She didn't expect that he could actually knock down 2 people in an instant. Because of him, the pressure on her was reduced. But what happened next made her more astonished. She saw Chu Qing snorting coldly. He then turned into a golden flash and immediately appeared behind another woman. And it was another knife strike. Another one was knocked out. The other 3 people no longer dared to act carelessly, but Yi Chengsh's enthusiasm was actually aroused. How could she make her man stand out? She should be in the limelight. Yi Chengsh struck with her hand. A burly woman in front of her could not dodge in time and tried to block her with the flat side of the knife. But she lost in the battle of strength and the knife slipped off her hands. Chu Qing was 1 against 2, but his opponents couldn't even follow his silver machete. It only took 3 strikes to knock those 2 people to the ground. Good job! Yi Chengsh laughed dryly and hugged Chu Qing's shoulders. The killing intent in Chu Qing's eyes faded a little. If he wasn't afraid of causing unnecessary trouble to Yi Chengsh, these 6 people wouldn't even be worth any effort for him. Sword Immortal Chu Qing, treat friends with justice, but when treating the enemy has never been soft. I kept them alive, and leave the rest for you to handle. Chu Qing dropped the silver machete and said to Yi Chengsh. Yi Chengsh turned serious. Today, if it was not for Chu Qing giving her a hand, she would have really lost her life there. Moreover, she was the queen who controlled the underground forces in the entire city of Tianjin, so the least she could do was to handle the aftermath. Well, I will ask people to handle things here. But she was still a little surprised. Is this Chu Qing really an ordinary high school student? He is completely different from the investigation results. How can ordinary high school student learn ancient martial arts, a skill that is only in the hands of a few people? And he also seems to know a lot about underground forces. Then today's meal. I don't think it's possible to go forward with our plan. Let's go together another day. It's already too late and my dad would have already started worrying about me. Chu Qing rubbed his shoulders. The fight just now seemed to be only a warm-up for him. He couldn't help but hope to have some trouble again. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile a little, but fortunately, he was here today, otherwise, he was afraid that Yi Chengsh wouldn't have just gotten away with some minor injuries. She now owes him a favor. This way, she will never be arrogant in front of me. Asterisk ring asterisk asterisk ring asterisk. Hello? Who is this? Yi Chengsh's phone rang suddenly, and she flicked her hair to pick up the phone. What? Chu Qing watched her as complexion suddenly turned pale. But what happened had nothing to do with him. Things related to the underground forces and her family were not managed by a high school student like him. He shook his head, ready to leave. He was not interested in her family's affairs, nor did he want to be drawn into it. In this world, he wanted his sense of participation to be as low as possible, so that when the time comes for him to leave this world, he would have no concerns. Chu Qing, don't leave. Just when he turned around, Yi Chengsh suddenly pulled him with teary eyes. This made Chu Qing very curious. What could make the underground queen Yi Chengsh lose her self-control so much? Why? What happened? My mother. There was an assassination attempt on my mother, so I have to return to my family. How could this be? Chu Qing's face turned heavy. Yi Chengsh was attacked and there was an assassination attempt on her mother on the same day. As a person who has had enough experiences in life, he smelled a thick conspiracy. He guessed that these 2 incidents were definitely more than just coincidence. If something really had happened to Yi Chengsh today, and her mother's side was also unable to handle the overall situation because of the assassination attempt, then the underground world in the city would have definitely changed dramatically.